So let us talk a little bit about the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. What are they doing? Okay, how does that work? Okay, so the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is a United Nations body for reviewing, summarizing, and updating scientific research on climate change. They're not doing research, they are not sponsoring research. They are exclusively reviewing publications, scientific publications. They look at all scientific publications. And the IPCC has 3 working groups. Working Group 1, the physical science basis. Working Group 2, impacts, adaptation, and vulnerability. And Working Group 3, mitigation. And there's also a synthesis report. Okay? And the key here is the Working Group 1, the physical science basis, because they're updating scientific knowledge, scientific findings of temperature changes, all changes associated with changes in the global climate system. And the IPCC has published a number of so-called assessment reports, which are large, long reports, summarizing existing scientific knowledge. And the first one was published in 1990. AR1, the first assessment, and then the next one 6 years later, and that's a typical time between report. Sometimes a little bit longer here. You can see it's almost 10 years between the 4th and the 5th assessment report. Okay. The IPCC also published various special reports. Okay. So, let's just have a look at a few questions. So, do IPCC reports actually offer policy solutions to governments? Do they come up with some suggestions like how can we solve the problem? So the IPCC reports are policy relevant but not policy prescriptive. Okay? So what they do is it's the role of the IPCC to provide governments with a comprehensive assessment of the most up-to-date scientific, technical, and socio-economic knowledge on issues related to climate change. So what they're also doing is they actually do climate change projections that are based on a range of specific so-called emission scenarios. From this assessment, policymakers obtain information on potential consequences from climate change depending on the scenarios. Okay, and we talk about climate change projections in the next lecture. So let's have a look at the latest IPCC report of Working Group 1, the physical science basis. Okay, it's called Climate Change 2021, the physical science basis. Okay, it focuses on a full and comprehensive assessment of the physical science basis of climate change based on evidence from more than 14,000 scientific publications available by 31st of January 2021. That was the deadline. Okay, so the process involved 234 experts from 64 countries. Okay, they served as authors. They had 31 coordinating lead authors and 167 lead authors, supported by numerous contributing authors and another 36 review editors. Of the selected experts, 41% come from developing countries, with economies in transition, and 59% are from developed countries. In this report, 63% of the authors were new to the IPCC process, 28% were women, and 72% were men. All right, so what's the methodology? Okay, the methodology is based on confidence levels. So you come to a conclusion, and then attached to that is a certain confidence level, from low to high. Okay, so the confidence level itself, okay, is based on two aspects: on the evidence and on the judgment. Okay, so you have all these experts looking at different pieces of information, and they have an assessment of the confidence, which goes from very low confidence, means low agreement, limited evidence, to high agreement and robust evidence. Okay? But you can also have cases where you have a low agreement but a robust evidence, or a high agreement and limited evidence. Okay, so in that case, you get a scale of confidence. And indeed, what we are interested in is actually this range where we have a high agreement and a robust evidence. All right, that's interesting to know, isn't it? So, based on that, the IPCC uses special definitions of terms that are used in the report, associated with different probability ranges. So this is shown here in this table. Likelihood of the outcome. So if they come up with a 99 to 100% probability, it's called virtually certain. Okay? If the probability is 90 to 100% probability, it's very likely. Okay? If it's 66 to 100%, it's likely. And so you go down to the scale. If it's between 0 or 1% probability, then it's exceptionally unlikely. Okay, and then there are additional use termed for extremely likely, more likely than not, or extremely unlikely. And these definitions are extremely important, because the findings are expressed in an assessment using special terminology. Okay? And that is really, really important here. Okay, so this concludes the second part of this lecture.